Mhm.
Everybody. Just to remind everybody, this will be live stream. Just a reminder, this will be a live stream hearing. My name is Joe Greco. I'm from the Ross is unable to be with us today. We've got Mr. Wayne Greco, Mr. Art Palazzi, and Mr. Lyndon Rader. And now Michelle has.
I acknowledge with respect that we're in the Robinson-Hury Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Boating. Boating is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. I'd just like to remind everybody that the procedures for our hearing are handed out in the gallery, the white pages that you see in the gallery. If you want to speak, you'll be given an opportunity to speak. You'd identify yourself, give me your address. If you're comfortable speaking from where you're standing, that's fine. If you think you can project enough and speak where you're standing. If not, then I'd ask that you go to the podium and then we'll sanitize the podium after each speaker leaves. So once the committee is finished with your application or the application that you're attending on, you're free to leave the gallery, leave the hearing. You're also welcome to stay for the rest of it if you wish. So we'll move on, Mr. Chair. And if I could have a motion for the minutes of the June 22nd meeting.
I wasn't here, I can move.
Oh. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I've not been advised of any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there any? Seeing none, I'll record none. I've not had any requests for a deferral or withdrawal. So we'll move right directly to the first matter on our agenda. Most of you know me by name. I probably know many of you by telephone and not by face. So I will ask that when I call, you identify yourself if you're speaking to the application. So the first matter on our agenda is application A2022. It's an application from Guillaume and Christina Williams. The civic address is 115 Ransom Drive. Mr. Williams, are you in the gallery? Yes, there you are. Mr. Williams is in the gallery and available for any questions, and he may wish to speak. The subject property is located on the south side of Ransom Drive at the westerly dead end of the street. It is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R2 single unit residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of Bylaw 2005-150 as amended by increasing the height of a 6.1 meter by 10.97 detached garage currently under construction. Specifically, section 9.1.5 requires a maximum garage height of 6 meters. The applicant seeks to increase the garage height to 6.27 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to the following internal departments and external agencies for their review: Building, Planning, Engineering, Fire, Legal, PUC Services, Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority, and Bell Canada Right of Way. Building, Planning, Engineering, Legal, and Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority commented that they had no objections. Building Division staff had no objections, advising that the proposed development will require compliance with Ontario Building Code Act and all applicable authorities, review and approval of the City Building Division and issuance of a building permit. It's my understanding that the applicant has proceeded with that. Considerations for the committee: there were no objections to the requests from staff or neighboring property owners circulated on the application. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
No comments.
I will move we. I will move.
Okay.
I will second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter on our agenda is application A2122, the city of Sault Ste. Marie. The property is 354th Avenue. Are there persons in the gallery that wish to speak to the application? Is Mr. Walls in the gallery? Yes, you're right there. Anyone else in the gallery that is here on this application or wishes to speak to this application? Okay, we'll move along. The city of Sault Ste. Marie is the registered owner of 354th Avenue. It is located on the southeast corner of Douglas Street and 4th Avenue and extends to 5th Avenue and commonly known as the David Kyle Park. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned PR, Parks and Recreation. Relief is requested from the provisions of Bylaw 2005-150 as amended to facilitate the erection of an ambient air quality monitoring station by reducing the minimum distance of any building from any public street or lot line. Specifically, section 12.2 requires a minimum distance from any public street to be 20 meters and from any lot line 30 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the minimum distance from any public street or exterior lot line to 5 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to 53 neighboring property owners and by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. Excuse me. An email was received from David and Donna Lockie of 361 4th Avenue, and it read as follows. As homeowners of the property that is across the street from this proposed project, I decline the acceptance of this property being built. We have paid taxes to the city for 24 years based on the fact that the property which you want to build on is designated city park and green space, not to be sold off to a higher bidder to be turned into another eyesore, as well as the fact of depreciation and what you're taking away from the neighborhood children. We as city are backwards when it comes to where we go with development of land. Why can't it be built on their own property or off Carmen's Way in the multimodal vacant property or somewhere closer to their property in Bayview where pollution lands like the old bowling alley property? Is taking away another park, even if only partial land, the right idea? My stance is no. As far as I'm concerned, you can't tell me anyone on city council would be happy if this was proposed in their backyard affecting their property value, or their family time would be happy in accepting. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to the following internal departments and external agencies for their review: Building, Planning, Engineering, Fire, Legal, PUC Services, Public Works, Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority, and Bell Canada Right-of-Way. Building, Planning, Engineering, Legal, Public Works, and the Conservation Authority had no objections. Building Division staff had no objections, advising that the proposed development will require compliance with the Ontario Building Code Act and all applicable authorities review and approval from the City Building Division and issuance of a building permit, and the agent for the applicant is aware of that. Planning staff have reviewed this application and have no objections to its approval. The Parks and Recreation Zone setbacks were originally established to ensure adequate separation in a park-like setting. In this particular case, the proposed air monitoring station footprint is quite small, similar to a shed. Furthermore, this particular location has been chosen to minimize impacts to the overall usability of David Kyle Park. Therefore, planning staff is of the opinion that the proposed variances are appropriate in this instance. Considerations for the committee are: the monitoring station is intended to be approximately 12.9 square meters or 138.8 square feet in size. One neighboring property owner objected to the application and there were no objections from staff. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. And Paul Walls is here as agent on the application if you have any questions.
I do have a question. Just ask, I'm gonna make an assumption. The reason for the application is, I'm assuming, this out of the park as possible at that time.
Correct. Well, there's a couple of reasons for the application. First one is the Ministry of Environment and Conservation Parks have chosen the sites. We worked along with the city, for example, Framlan, and the city group. We did visit every site, and the park was provided as a source. However, we've noticed that there is a ball line in there as well as a playground. By law and by requirement of the ministry, there's codes and maintenance and operation procedures. We have to keep certain distance away from sand, from roads, etc. So ideally, to prevent any interaction with public use of the park, as well as to meet compliance to all the requirements, location that was presented is the ideal location.
Small.
Shed-like structure in there, and then on an occasional basis, once every 6 days, we'll have a consultant actually go out there and actually sand. And for public interest as well, these stations are also posted live on our website at algoma.com. So any air quality that they want to do in the community itself or the neighborhood, will all be posted live online.
I think I already know the answer, but just in regards to the letter from David and Donna Lockey, when they talk about paying taxes, that's just on their own property, right? Like nobody in that community is paying taxes on the park or,
No,
okay, so it's city owned and everything. Okay. I just wanted to clarify. I already knew the answer.
So just, if I may, another question based on their comments. The property still belongs to the city of Sault Ste. Marie? Is that?
yeah,
Okay.
it's not a severance.
It had,
It's just a minor
They make
variance.
reference to it being sold.
So the city is actually, well, she makes reference to it being
Yes.
sold. The
That's-
city is applying for the variance.
Thank you.
It's the agent that requires the variance, and they're speaking to the variance.
Thank you.
Just a comment, this is not just a standalone structure. We'll have actually 3 structures being developed around the city. Increase our ability to air quality. This is the only one that requires.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last motion.
I'll make the motion to approve this variant.
Second about that.
I will second that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter on our agenda is application 82222, an application from Delmer and Karen Pollock, 61 Berkshire Place, and I know Mr. Pollock's in the gallery. And is there anyone else in the gallery that wishes to speak to this application? Okay, we'll move right forward. The subject property is 61 Berkshire Place. It's lots 37 Bellevue Estates subdivision, the former township of Terrantoris. It is located on the west side of Berkshire Place between 3rd Line East and 4th Line East and is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of Bylaw 2005-150 as amended by increasing the height of a 12.19 meter by 18.29 meter detached garage and reducing the south side yard setback, specifically section 9.5.2, maximum garage height of 6 meters. The application seeks to increase the garage height to 6.6 meters. Interior side yard requirement is 3.5 meters. The application seeks to reduce the south interior side yard to 1.2 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and by posting on the city website. As part of the application review process, the following internal departments and external agencies were invited to comment: Building, Planning, Engineering, Fire, Legal, PUC Services, Public Works, Conservation Authority, and Bell Canada Right-of-Way. Planning, Algoma Public Health, and the Conservation Authority had the following comments. Planning staff have reviewed this application, and after meeting with the applicant, we are prepared to support an amended request to reduce the side yard setback from 3.5 meters to 1.8 meters. However, staff is not supportive of the request to increase the garage height. Planning staff recommend that as a condition of approval, a rendering of the proposed garage, including materials to be used, be submitted to the planning director for his approval prior to the issuance of a building permit. Planning staff note that the property is constrained by a rear yard leachate bed that has an approximate 5 meter separation requirement as per Algoma Public Health. Locating the proposed garage closer to the house and not further into the rear yard reduces the encroachment into the matured rear yard tree canopy. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that any development on the property will require a permit from the Conservation Authority. Algoma Public Health, as a result of visiting the site, and has no concerns with the approval of the minor variance application and subsequent building permit being issued. Considerations for the committee are: planning staff support a reduction to the side yard to 1.8 meters, not 1.2 meters. They do not support an increase in height. Staff advised the applicant that they would support the amended setback if the garage height request was removed. It is recommended that any approval be made conditional on providing a rendering of the proposed garage, including materials to be used, being submitted to the planning director for his approval prior to the issuance of a permit. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. And again, Mr. Pollock is in the gallery. Right. No.
I only have one question. It was proposed by the planning board. Is it agreed upon by the applicant?
We met, or we all met yesterday and ironed out this solution.
Great. I'm prepared to approve, Mr. Chairman. I'll approve.
With the condition, I presume, Mr. Galatz?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the next matter on our agenda is an application A2322, D Tomaso Investments, Civic number 145 Old Garden River Road. And Ernie Krebs is the agent on this application, but I don't see Ernie here. Is there anyone else in the gallery that's here to speak to this application? 145 Old Garden River Road. Moving right along then. The subject property is located on the southeast corner of Old Garden River Road and second line east. It is designated institutional in the official plan and is zoned I institutional with a special exception. Relief is requested from the provisions of Bylaw 2005-150 as amended by increasing the height of a fence in the front yard. Specifically, section 7.2, the maximum fence height permitted in a front yard is 0.9 meters. The applicant seeks to increase the fence height in a portion of the westerly front yard to 1.8 meters along Old Garden River Road. And you note by your diagrams that it's a very small portion. As a matter of fact, the committee approved an increase to fence height a few meetings ago, but when the designer's plans were submitted, it was not quite right. So they had to come back. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. Planning had the following comments, building had the following comments. There were no objections from the other commenting agencies. Building division staff had no objections, provided that the required sightlines for fencing as per zoning bylaw 2005-150 are not interrupted. Planning staff have reviewed this application and have no objections to its approval. It is noted that the proposed fencing is set well back from the roadway and will not impact the overall aesthetics of the area. There is a significant boulevard there. Considerations for the committee, no objections to the request from staff or neighboring property owners that were circulated on the application. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. No.
I will move.
Is there no one representing this application?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. The next matter on our agenda is application A2422, Kelly Whitney, 113 Sunnyside Beach Road. There she is. And Kelly is in the gallery to answer any questions that you might have. It is located on the west side of Sunnyside Beach Road and abuts Lake Superior. It is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of Bylaw 2005-150 as amended by permitting a double-car garage to be located in the front yard and by reducing the side yard setback. Specifically, Section 9.5.2 of zoning Bylaw 2005-150 requires a front yard of 12 meters. The applicant seeks to permit a garage to be located in the front yard 5.026 meters from the front lot line. The bylaw requires an interior side yard of 3.5 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the north interior side yard to 1.8 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. Building, engineering, fire, legal, PUC services, public works, conservation authority, Algoma Public Health, and Bell Canada right-of-way had no objections. Building division staff had no objections, advising that the proposed development will require compliance with the Ontario Building Code Act and all applicable authorities, review and approval from the city building division, and issuance of a building permit. Building wished it noted that there are multiple overhead conductors within the vicinity of the proposed structure. The Ontario Building Code will require minimum clearance to these conductors. And that's something that your designer, your contractor will be aware of or should be aware of, and you might want to make mention of it because there is a spatial distance, a swing calculation that'll have to be done, and it would have to meet that swing calculation. So that's what they're talking about. Planning staff have reviewed this application and wish to make the following comments. The area is generally characterized as significantly undersized lots that need to accommodate on-site water and septic systems and a 15-meter setback from Lake Superior. Furthermore, over the past 2 decades, the area has seen a significant redevelopment and conversions from seasonal to year-round occupancy. The overall effect has been numerous variances to accommodate larger homes and garages, especially adjacent to the roadway. In this particular case, the existing dwelling is fairly modest in size, and the applicant is seeking approval to construct a garage for storage. Given the water frontage, virtually all dwellings in the area are oriented in a manner to maximize views to the water. Therefore, the main impact is aesthetics when viewed from the roadway. Furthermore, there are existing detached garages nearby that are similarly close to the road. With all of this in mind, planning staff is supportive of the proposed variances, conditional upon the following: that the garage door be oriented to the south as opposed to the east facing the roadway, that as part of the building permit application, plans include a vegetative buffer between the garage and roadway. The vegetative buffer could be in the form of a hedge or some other vegetation that will reach at least 6 feet upon maturity. The vegetative plan shall be to the satisfaction of the planning director. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that any development on the property will require a permit from the Conservation Authority. Considerations for this committee: no objections from neighboring property owners, no objections from staff. Planning staff recommended any approval be conditional on that the garage door be oriented to the south as opposed to the east facing the roadway, that as part of the building permit application, plans include a vegetative buffer between the garage and roadway. The vegetative buffer could be in the form of a hedge or some other vegetation that will reach at least 6 feet upon maturity. The vegetation plan shall be to the satisfaction of the planning director, and it's noted that the applicant, since receiving those comments, has submitted an updated site plan, and planning director wished to note that he's satisfied with the recently submitted site plan dated July 14th, 2022. Recommendation that any approval be made conditional as requested by planning staff, and that the development proceed in accordance with the submitted site plan dated July 14th, 2022. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
I will move, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving right along, we're on application A2522. It's an application from Harold and Anna Mogg, and Harold Mogg is in the gallery to answer any questions that you might have. The subject property is 235 Old Gooley Bay Road. It is located on the west side of Old Gooley Bay Road between Third Line East and Fourth Line East. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 with a state residential with a special exception and RA rural area. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended to facilitate final approval of consent application B2821 by reducing the front yard setback and permit a garage to continue without a main building. Specifically, sections 9.5.2 requires a 12-meter front yard. The applicant seeks to reduce the front yard requirement to 9.7 meters for the existing home only. Specific section 9.1.2, no accessory building shall be constructed prior to the erection of the main building, and the applicant seeks the committee's approval to permit the existing 6.09 meter by 7.35 meter detached garage to remain without a main building for a period of 2 years. In explanation to the committee, this application, consent application B2821 was previously approved by the committee. A subsequent survey revealed that the existing house is closer to the lot line, although at the time it has legal non-conforming status, but once the lot is changed shape, it loses that status. So this seeks to legitimize the existing front yard setback for the existing house. On another proposed lot, though, is the detached garage. And the zoning bylaw does not permit a garage to be located on a property without a main building. So the applicant is requesting that the garage be able to stay there without a main building for a period of up to 2 years. In that their intent is to build a new home on the property, but would ask for that 2-year period. If after 2 years it's not removed, the applicants or owner of the day's choice will be to come back to this committee for a further variance or to move the garage. Planning staff have reviewed this application and have no objections to its approval. The reduced front yard setback appears to line up with the existing house at 235 Old Garden River Road, as well as neighboring properties on the west side of the road. Furthermore, planning staff have no issues with permitting the construction of an accessory building prior to the main building, subject to the condition that a main building be constructed in 2 years. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that any development on the property will require a permit from the Conservation Authority. For your consideration, there is no objections to the request from neighboring property owners or staff. Planning staff support was conditional on the main building being constructed in 2 years. It is noted that the request is for a temporary variance to regulation 9.1.2 for a period of 2 years. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. And again, Harold Mogg is in the gallery.
I'm just one curious little comment, structure that's been there for 140 years.
If you weren't changing the shape of the property, it wouldn't.
That was just my little.
Comments, questions, anybody else in the gallery?
Is there any advancement in taking out a building permit at this time for the whole? Or are we just going to give the 2 years?
Well, he would have to have his plans all drawn up and pay for the permit.
Yeah.
The plans aren't drawn up for the house or
Okay.
anything else, so.
So we just wait for the 2,
So
whenever he does
He's
that.
asking for approval for 2 years, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle.
Any other questions?
No.
I'll move it with the conditions.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Item 7 on your agenda, which is an application for 180 Roosevelt, has been withdrawn. So we'll move to item 8 on your agenda, which is application B2222, 68 Daisy Road. William Batman is the owner, and we have an interested party in the gallery. And Mr. Batman is available by phone. William and Cheryl Batman are the owners of Civic number 68 Daisy Road. It is located on the northerly side of Daisy Road between Queen Street East and River Road. It is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R2 single unit residential. The applicants are seeking the committee's consent to convey an easterly interior parcel being approximately 35.5 meters by 59.8 meters by 2,100 square meters and attach it to the southerly abutting property known as 34 Daisy Road as a lot addition. The intent of the application is to increase the existing land holding known as 34 Daisy Road. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, engineering, legal, Bell Canada right-of-way and Conservation Authority had no objections. Considerations for the committee are there's been no objections to the request from staff or neighboring property owners. Customary conditions to be applied but not limited to any approval are provision of a registered survey plan, payments of certificate fee, provision of applicable transfer documents, discharge or partial discharge of charge or mortgage, payment of municipal taxes, and compliance with zoning bylaw provisions. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. And again, are you interested in speaking, sir? Do you have a question? If you have a question, you just need to identify yourself and ask. Mhm.
Just curious as to what that extension. Is there
Did you want to see a plan?
Nice and easy, Michelle. That's better than takeout service for Michelle.
Pardon me, I didn't get your name, ma'am. Barb, and your address? 70 Daisy, thank you.
I'm just wondering if there's roads and access to the property line. Because at the present time, it's 60 Daisy Road is the access into the, on the dock.
It still will be 68 Daisy. The access to that rear lands doesn't change. This is to the easterly part of the property, and I will show you as well.
You do good work. Curbside service. Whatever it takes.
This now is attached here. So that's the trees. This abuts the same property. It's just the driveway. Yeah, this vacant lot here. Now you can start. You're welcome.
Any questions being answered properly, Ms. Overall? Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment. It's very nice to see the public respond and come to ask questions, so they're satisfied of what the committee is doing. I appreciate the people coming and giving their concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, not really a comment, but just when we're saying 35.5 meters by 59.8 meters. And then by 2,100 square meters,
It is about.
like
2,100
it
square
totals
meters,
20,
yeah,
okay,
in size.
okay.
So I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Okay, so moving forward, we have application B 2322. An application from Betty Ann Finley, civic number 216 Town Line Road and 1652 Herkimer Street. Mr. Morello is agent on the application, and he's in the gallery to speak to it or answer questions, whichever. It is located on the northeast corner of Town Line Road and Herkimer Street and is approximately 15.7 hectares or 39 acres in size. It is designated rural in the official plan and is zoned RA rural area. The property is a consolidated property having merged at the owner's request several years ago. The applicant is seeking the committee's consent to sever and convey an irregular shaped parcel having a frontage of 200.8 meters or 658.85 feet, more or less, and an approximate area of 15 hectares or 37 acres. The retained land would front on Herkimer Street and be approximately 70 meters by 115.8 meters by 0.8 hectares, or 230 feet by 380 feet and 2 acres in size. The intent of the application is to convey the vacant lands for future development purposes from the residentially developed parcel. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, engineering, legal, PUC services, Algoma Public Health, Bell Canada right-of-way, and the Sault Ste. Marie Region and Conservation Authority were circulated. Building Division advised that the property has an outstanding building permit for a detached garage and has an order issued on it regarding major renovations. This property is in non-compliance with building bylaw and the Ontario Building Code. Legal action is pending. The Building Division recommends a deferral of this application until such time as the property is brought into compliance. Planning staff noted that the western edge of the provincially significant Carp River wetland complex occupies the eastern portion of 216 Town Line. However, the proposed severance is well outside of the regulated adjacent lands. Planning staff have no objections. Engineering staff advised that any septic system design shall be to the satisfaction of Algoma Public Health. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that any development on either the retained or severed portion of the property will require a permit from the Conservation Authority. Algoma Public Health had no objections. So some considerations for the committee. At some point in time, the residential component was separated from the larger landholding. A subsequent purchaser wanted the properties to merge and as such took common title to both properties to effect that merge. The owner recently entered into a purchase of sale agreement to convey the vacant land from their residentially developed lands, proposing a parcel that would meet all zoning bylaw requirements for size and setbacks, etc. Given the history of the subject property, it's my opinion that it would not be appropriate to attach payment of cash in lieu for park purposes for a new lot creation, since the request establishes a former independent residential component. Due to the outstanding non-compliant issues on the subject property, the Building Division has requested that the committee defer making a decision on this matter. I'm advising that the agent, Mr. Morello, was informed of Building Division's request for a deferral and was also informed that should the committee proceed with their consideration of the application, that as a condition of any approval will be that the non-compliance matters and orders be brought into compliance prior to final consent. Mr. Morello advised that he did not want a deferral, accepting the conditions that would be attached to any approval. Should the committee approve the request, the conditions to be applied but not limited to any approval are provision of a registered survey plan, payment of certificate fee, provision of applicable transfer documents, discharge or partial discharge of charge or mortgage, payment of all municipal taxes, all outstanding building permit matters and orders on the subject property must be brought into compliance to the satisfaction of the chief building official prior to final consent. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair. And again, it's Frank Morello in the gallery. Mr. Chair, as I see it, the committee has the option to defer as requested by building, or to consider with their, with deliberation on the application and attach the conditions as suggested. Yes, and Mr. Morella has indicated that that's how he would prefer the committee move forward.
Right. So I'm totally confused on this because the last sentence of that paragraph said, Mr. Morrow advised he did not want a deferral accepting the conditions.
Yeah, he did not want a deferral, accepting, not accepting,
Okay. sorry.
accepting the
I
conditions.
should know that. Okay, I understand. Got it.
Based on those comments, is there any other comments? Anybody else? Comments? Yes, sir.
Pardon? And your address, sir? 109 Town Line? Thank you. Yes?
I'm just not against it. I was wondering, I wanted to make sure I'm clear on this. This is just the kind of divider.
No, it's just to separate where the residential component is, the house, garages and all that, from the rest of the vacant land. That's right. It will end up being two pieces of property. The severance is technically the vacant land. She'll retain the residential component, and the new owner of the vacant land will develop in some manner. Yes. Not if it met all the zoning requirements, a new application wouldn't have to come forward, no. The intent of the development would have to be with whatever is permitted in a rural area zone. It is rural. If they were wanting to do something outside of that, an application would follow.
Mr. Chairman, is question through you to Michelle. Is the building division okay with the considerations that they asked us to take to consider?
The building division has asked for a deferral.
But have you discussed the new additions that are permitted for the approval? That's just our decision.
That's your decision.
Okay.
Either way, the building division would be satisfied.
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
But the building division's position is they'd like to see you defer your decision until they've been satisfied. The applicant is saying, I prefer no deferral. Let's get moving on it so that these matters can be addressed and they can iron something out. And if they don't get addressed, the application doesn't finalize.
Yeah, okay,
no matter what happens.
that's fair. I will move to approve, yeah.
So-
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can you clarify the motion? Is it- Okay.
I just say that as Michelle has stated too, it's been hanging around for a while. Let's get it going. That's all I say. Yeah.
Sorry. I think it's-
Thank you. Application, item 10 on your agenda, application B2422 is an application 8748372 Canada Inc. The subject property is 82nd Line West, and Vincent Palumbo is the representative on this application. It is located on the north side of Second Line West between Farwell Terrace and Peoples Road. It is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned C4 general commercial and R3 low density residential. The applicant is seeking the committee's consent to sever and convey a vacant parcel fronting on Churchill Avenue being 19.2 meters by 45.72 meters or 63 feet by 150 feet. The remnant commercially developed parcel would retain an area of approximately 2,540 square meters. The intent of the application is to create one additional residential lot for future development purposes. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, legal, PUC services, Bell Canada right-of-way, and Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority were circulated. Engineering staff advised that a lot grading plan should be prepared to determine drainage pattern. If surface water from a property must traverse an adjacent lot prior to reaching an outlet, it must be confirmed that a drainage agreement is registered on title of the affected lots permitting the drainage as proposed. And that's something that's done at the time of your survey. Considerations for the committee. No evidence that approval would create a negative impact. No objections to the request. Conditions to be applied but not limited to any approval are lot drainage grading agreement and a lot drainage agreement registered on title if necessary. Provision of registered survey plan, payment of certificate fee, payment of cash in lieu, provision of applicable transfer documents, discharge or partial discharge or charge of mortgage, payment of municipal taxes in compliance with the zoning bylaw provisions. And Mr. Chair, those are my submissions. And again, it's Mr. Palumbo in the gallery.
Comments or questions from community members? Seeing none, we'll put it forward.
I'll move with the drainage plan and then following all the payments and everything. Yeah.
You have a second to that motion?
No, second that motion.
Second, is that all in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next matter on our agenda is application B2522. It's an application from Robert Gordon McChesney, James McChesney, and Carrie Lynn McFarlane. It's related to civic number 475 Old Garden River Road. And Robert Gordon McChesney is in the gallery. It is located on the south side of Old Garden River Road between Mill Creek Drive and Third Line East. It is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R2 single unit residential. The applicants are seeking the committee's consent to sever and convey a westerly parcel fronting on Old Garden River Road, being approximately 83.1 meters by 47.2 meters by 0.31 hectares in size. The remnant residentially developed parcel would retain an area of approximately 0.69 hectares. The intent of the application is to create one additional residential lot for future development purposes. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and by posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, engineering, legal, PUC services, Bell Canada right-of-way, and the Conservation Authority were circulated. Planning staff have reviewed this application and have no objection to its approval, conditional upon any future development upon the proposed severed portion occurring on a full public water and sewer service. It is noted that as part of the new official plan project, staff is proposing that a number of urban settlement area expansions, one of which would have the effect of including the entire subject property within the urban settlement area. Therefore, subject to provincial approval of the new official plan as proposed, it is anticipated that the subject property will have future urban service development potential. Engineering staff advise that there is a sanitary sewer easement along the western property line. There is no sanitary along the Old Garden River Road. Development on this lot should be serviced through municipal servicing. There is a drainage swell at or near the rear yards of the Mill Creek Drive properties. That drainage must remain in place. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that any development on either the retained or severed portions of the property will require a site plan review and may require a permit from the Conservation Authority. Considerations are no evidence that approval would create a negative impact. There are no objections to the request. Conditions to be applied but not limited to any approval are provision of registered survey plan, payment of certificate fee, payment of cash in lieu of parkland, provision of applicable transfer documents, discharge or partial discharge of charge or mortgage, payment of municipal taxes, compliance with zoning bylaw provisions. The proposed severed parcel must be serviced by full public water and sewer services or municipal servicing prior to any development occurring on the site. The drainage swell at or near the rear yards of the Mill Creek Drive properties must remain in place. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I just have a further question. I know Michelle, you and I talked about this.
Not yet, but Jonathan, maybe, has there been anything new in the last month? No.
That was the reason I asked. Because doing this again, I'm not gonna have this great cost. But the one question I did have, will I get a copy of those notes? Because I'm trying to understand.
Yes, you will get a copy of the written decision early next week. Cash in lieu, 5% of the value of the newly created lot is paid to the city.
That goes for everyone.
That goes with every new lot creation. Yeah, not lot addition, but lot creation.
Okay. I believe I am. I'll read it out.
I will move, Mr. Chairman.
No question.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman. With what the conditions, yes.
I'll second. Yeah.
Is that Dan up there? Yeah. Okay. So moving right along to the next matter on our agenda, it's item 12. Application B2622, Daniel Framlan Holdings, Inc. is the owner of 207 Daisy Road. It is located on the southeasterly side of Daisy Road between Chambers Avenue and Hardwood Street. It is designated residential in the official plan and is owned R2 single unit residential, R3 low density residential, and R4 medium density residential, and is subject to site plan control. The applicant is seeking the committee's consent to sever and convey a 98.32 meter by 39.544 meter by 0.38 hectares in size parcel fronting on Daisy Road. The remnant parcel would retain an area of approximately 3.5 acres. The intent of the application is to provide autonomous title to the residential development currently under construction. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and by posting on the city website. I'd just like to explain to the committee before I get into the following comments. Recently, there was a neighborhood meeting held to discuss potential development of the rear lands. Had nothing to do with the property that is the subject of this consent. In that meeting, attendees were advised that they would be receiving a notice from the city before anything moved further. Unbeknownst to them, I had a notice out in the mail. They received my notice thinking that it was the notice related to the development of the rear lands, and it wasn't. So we spent between Mr. Framlan and myself quite a bit of time letting neighbors know and answering questions to neighbors that no, this is not the notice that they would anticipate to receive on that rear land. Unfortunately, or regretfully, or whatever, this comment came in which alerted me to what was happening. And we started to try and take care of that.
Will you call that just a coincidence?
It was unfortunate timing.
Okay.
The owners of 93 McMurray Avenue submitted the following comments. We are the owners and residents of 93 McMurray Avenue. Our property is situated within 30 to 60 meters of the subject property and have attended the drop-in session on July 12th, where we received some information from Daniel J. Framlan Builders. We also received the letter sent to us by the City of Sault Ste. Marie advising us of the upcoming public hearing on July 27th, which we plan to attend. We would like to submit the following comments prior to the hearing for your consideration. As residents of the above address, we wish to note that there is currently an area of trees between our property and the proposed development. We want to see a barrier of trees remain between us for privacy. This is something we have enjoyed for the past 40 plus years of living here and wish to see it continue, as do our neighbors next door to us. In the past, we, along with our neighbors, opposed the development of the Orion Co-op housing, which is adjacent to the subject property. Approval for that application was originally turned down at the municipal level, but was later brought to a provincial level and subsequently approved. We asked at that time for a berm of trees to remain for privacy and noise reduction, but all of the trees in the property were cleared before construction began. So we sincerely hope this does not happen with this latest development being proposed. When we first learned of the initial phase of the development of the property located on the southeasterly side of Daisy Road, between Chambers Avenue and Hardwood Street, we understood there would not be any development of the land to the rear of the existing school property. However, this no longer seems to be the case. When we moved to the neighborhood in 1981, the property located on the southeasterly side of Daisy Road, between Chambers Avenue and Hardwood Street, was occupied by a school, and we would not have imagined the zoning of said property to become residential. As the proposed development includes the addition of a street, we also have some concerns about the level of vehicular traffic, resulting noise that may be added to the area. Again, I spoke to these people and emailed back and forth and advised them that I appreciated their comments, that they were related to the rear property, not to the property at hand. Did they wish to take back their comments or have their comments stand and be heard by the committee? And they thanked me for the information and asked that their comments stand. So you have them. Technical review. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, engineering, legal, PUC services, Bell Canada right-of-way, and the Conservation Authority were circulated. Engineering staff advised that easements are required for the services that connect to the retained property. As these units share servicing, engineering does not support further severance of the proposed severed property. And that's the rear property again, that's not this property. Property owners, considerations for the committee. Property owners abutting the rear of the subject property have requested that the treed area between their property and the proposed development remain for privacy purposes. That's an advisement to committee. I don't see how you could attach it as a condition to this consent, but we can attach it as an advisement, and Mr. Framlan's well aware of that. No objections to the request. Conditions to be applied but not limited to any approval are provision of servicing easements, provision of registered survey plan, payment of certificate fee, payment of cash in lieu of parkland, provision of applicable transfer documents, discharge or partial discharge or charge of mortgages, payment of municipal taxes in compliance with zoning bylaws. And those are my submissions, Mr. Chair.
No, this is already on. Sorry. Sorry.
I can say that Mr. Framlan has advised me that he wants as many trees as possible to remain as well for privacy and that, and he added that it's less grass to cut. There was another member of the neighborhood that was here initially to speak to this application. Again, he was under the understanding that it was part of the previous application. He did go down, I directed him downstairs to speak to a member of engineering staff about some other concerns he had. In the meantime, Mr. Framlan arrived and I suggested that he go down and speak to him, which he did. And obviously that gentleman has not returned, so.
Thank you, Michelle and committee. I'm here as well as counsel for Mr. Framlan's Corporation. If anybody has any questions for me.
Sorry, did, who is it, who is attending there?
Steve Shoemaker from the Wishart Law
Oh,
Firm. Michelle,
Steve.
can you hear me?
You mustn't have heard the chair ask if there was anyone else that wished to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was listening, but I am here and I am listening. If anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. Although the explanation you've given touches on the issues separating the backland issue from this severance question and application today, which essentially has no objections from what I'm being told and what I'm hearing. And there's no issues and no concern from Mr. Framlan on any of the conditions, including the advisement.
Thank you.
I will move, Mr. Chairman, with the conditions.
I'll second.
Seconded by Norman McGregor, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Framlan, and thank you, Mr. Shoemaker.
Thank you, committee. Madam Chair, those are my, and Madam Secretary, those are my, my matters, if I may be excused.